Diddy is symptomatic of just power gone awry. He's going to have to register as a sex offender. And he'll probably have to do that for 10 years. And if he doesn't, guess what? That's a separate crime altogether. So this can follow him. So if you're thinking, oh, Diddy got off, blah, blah. Well, his lawyers did a good job. And, he still has the right to appeal his conviction and his sentence. It ain't going to go anywhere because the evidence of the Mann Act violations were overwhelming. He's now tagged with 2 felonies. He's not free to go about and do what he wants to do. For the next, 89 months or thereabouts, he's going to be under the control of the federal government. And that's no little thing for a guy like this.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's going to react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers with probably the last Diddy update. Jesus Christ. This is the gift that keeps on giving, right? But before we get to the nitty-gritty of what happened with Diddy, I just made that up. Nitty-gritty, what happened to Diddy? I should just start rapping, honestly. I should just start rapping. No, I shouldn't. Anyway, before we get to that, this is brought to you by, what are we brought to you by? AskALawyer.com. AskALawyer.com is a very effective way to avoid legal consequences if you follow some certain rules. In other words, if you have a case or you're going to bring a case, go to AskALawyer.com. For $49, you can get the advice of a living, breathing, human being lawyer. And if you're doing your own research, they've got an AI component that's trained in all the 50 states. Makes it really easy for you to do your own legal research. So go to AskALawyer.com. Good outfit. The same people brought you e-sign and e-forms, so you know they're reputable folks. So go to AskALawyer.com. Okay, so Diddy was sentenced. And I said he'd be somewhere 56 to 63 months or something. And I thought maybe even 70 months. Well, the judge gave him 50 months. Let's kind of calculate. I've got my handy dandy calculator right here. Let's calculate what that would mean. And these are approximate numbers, just so you know. So you take 50 times 0.85 equals 42 and a half months. That's with good time, right? And then he's already done 13 months roughly. And so that means 29 and a half months that he still has left to serve. Now he'll probably serve 6 months of that in a halfway house. So you take another 6 off of that. So that's roughly just about 2 years that he'll have to serve. But guess what? Once he's done doing that, he'll be on supervised release. And so that is another term of probation. And he'll have random testing. He won't be able to possess pornography. He will have to have his devices monitored, and if he fucks up on that, they can send him back to prison. He was sentenced to 50 months, and we kind of calculated what the actual time that he has to serve. And he got 5 years supervised release. That means he's on probation for 5 years after he gets out. And if he fucks up on that, he can go back to prison. And then the judge also gave him a $500,000 fine, which he's got plenty of money, so that's not going to be an issue for him. So here's the long and short of it. This is not a light sentence for Diddy at all. I mean, most people who go through this, the Mann Act, just prostitution across state lines, they don't have all the other conduct that Diddy was involved in, but they don't have a heavy sentence. In fact, a lot of people don't even go to prison on a case like this. But there was just so much to this case. That's why Diddy got hammered. Not because of who he is, but because of the prolific nature of what the fuck he did and who he did it to. There were victim impact statements, both impact statements from both the victims, and Diddy created his own video. So let's take a look at this. Now, I've heard on a number of newscasts, they're saying, oh, it's really uncommon to, I've done this plenty of times. I had a gun case where my client was sending, some firearms to the cartel. He owned a restaurant up north, and he got bullied by these cartel members who went to his home in Mexico where his mother was, and they said these men are here and there's 14 guys in pickup trucks, and they're ready to kill his mother. And so he shipped some weapons down to Colorado, and they got busted, and then he wound up holding the bag for it. Well, he didn't snitch, but I wanted to get a departure because this was coercion. This was absolute coercion. And so we did a whole video series on his business because he owned a restaurant, and his family, his wife, and his kids, and what his life was really like, and it was effective. So when I hear people talk about this is just unheard of, it's not unheard of. We've done that plenty.
What you've given to the world, I don't think you know, man.
When my baby cries.
You gotta give her a bottle then.
Know that you mean something to people. Know that you mean something to people. Like you live somewhere in people's heart.
Oh, it's so cute. He's with his children. He's just beautiful. Isn't it just beautiful? But, right off camera that you can see, there's 10,000 bottles of baby oil.
Then my lip fell off. Thank you.
There ain't no party like a Diddy party, right? The thing is, he should have been focused on this all along. This freak off parties and I just can't emphasize depravity breeds depravity. The more fucking freaked out you get, the more freakish you get in the sheets, the more you gotta have. I've seen it over and over again where people dip their toe in the perverted waters and they just have to get more and more perverted.
You wear it?
You inspire, you energize, and you've left that for the rest of the existence of this planet, man.
Oh, he and his baby just on the beach. Oh, he couldn't have done anything like this. Here's the thing. They started off saying that there weren't any victims, right? And then he apologized to the victims in his sentencing. He didn't speak at all during the trial, so they couldn't get him with an obstruction enhancement. So if he would have testified inconsistent with the facts of the case, they could get him for obstruction. That's why he didn't testify. So Robert just raised the query. It seems just odd that you would just do something like this with it. No, this is exactly what the defense lawyer should have done. Because, you've had a whole trial showing who this fucking monster is, right? And there hasn't been any character evidence because, when you have shit like this, you don't want to put character evidence on because guess what? That opens the door for the prosecutor to put on negative character evidence. And believe me, there were plenty other people to piss all over him, for lack of a better word, to use an R. Kelly reference. So this is what you want to do. I mean, honestly, I think this shows him in a different light.
One thing about great producers is they make you want to do better and be better about what you do. And he made me feel like I could do anything and go anywhere.
I'm from New York. I love New York. I love the city of New York. I love the children of New York. I wanted to do something good. I wanted to get my generation in the hip-hop community behind us. They come through in a big way. And we wanted to raise some money for the children of New York City for health and education. We have a huge education crisis. And, this is just a start. It's something we're going to be.
This is who he should have been. But, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. You listen to somebody who's got everything. He's got $1 billion. He's got all these endorsements. And he's probably getting bored with life. I'm untouchable. I'm the king, I'm Caligula. I make these men have sex with my woman, which I never fucking understood. Why would you do that? It just seems fucking gross, But I think, I had a buddy and he had this woman that said, I would do anything for you. I love you so much. And he would make her do stuff, that is just so depraved. When you get into that kind of stuff, you really walk down a very negative path.
I'm going to be committed to for a lifetime, and it's no better way than taking it to the streets. It's a beautiful city, running all around the city. It's going to be painful. It's going to be rough, but if we get through it, then it'll show kids and everybody else that finish what you started and you can do anything you put your mind to. Any of y'all go to public school?
Yes.
Okay, y'all running to raise money for your schools, so y'all get more books and computers and stuff like that.
But here's the other thing. this is a very well-produced video, right? It's also very self-aggrandizing, and that's not really lost on the judge. This isn't, this is look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm producing this video, look at me. I'm promoting myself. It's not things done in quiet. Prince, was funding hospitals and doing all kinds of cool stuff, but he did it all behind the fucking scenes. Nobody knew it. He wasn't getting anything out of it but his own good deed. My grandfather said a good deed is its own reward. Pat me on the back. Give me the key to the city. Look at me, look at me, look at me.
I just feel like it's important that us, young adults of power, that we look out for y'all. And we utilize our power to make sure y'all all right in the future. Put everything you can into your work, Don't think the cool thing is not to do your work. Don't think the cool thing is to hang on the corner with your friends and to talk about stuff that ain't gonna protect.
The cool thing to do is have 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lather up your fucking girlfriend and have some big black stud come in and fuck the shit out of her. Oh, wait, that's probably not what you want to say. Here's the thing. I'm not going to watch any more of this crap. But, the defense lawyers in this case did a remarkable job. Remember where we came from. He was looking at life in prison. And now he's got another 29 months to do, roughly. Thereabouts, 23 or 29, depending upon, what kind of credit he gets. And then that's it. And then he's going to be on supervised release. He'll be drug tested, because drugs were part of this case. He won't be able to take drugs, cocaine or otherwise. He won't be able to go wherever he wants. He won't be able to leave the country. I thought it was hubris that his lawyers said that they had, the lawyers asked for 14 months. The prosecutor asked for 135, and the judge gave him 50, so kind of in the middle. But I thought it was hubris that his lawyer said that he had a gig for speaking, the next day in Miami already booked. That shows a hubris. That shows like a lack of awareness, and it's like, read the fucking room. Here's the thing. Diddy is symptomatic of just power gone awry. He's going to have to register as a sex offender. And he'll probably have to do that for 10 years. And if he doesn't, guess what? That's a separate crime altogether. So this can follow him. So if you're thinking, oh, Diddy got off, blah, blah. Well, his lawyers did a good job. And, he still has the right to appeal his conviction and his sentence. It ain't going to go anywhere because the evidence of the Mann Act violations were overwhelming. He's now tagged with 2 felonies. He's not free to go about and do what he wants to do. For the next, 89 months or thereabouts, he's going to be under the control of the federal government. And that's no little thing for a guy like this. So here's what supervised release is going to be like for him. It'll be intense at first. They'll drug test him. They'll put monitoring software on his devices. They will, they'll have constant meetings and check-ins and that kind of thing once he gets out of prison. And as time goes on and he demonstrates compliance, the supervision will get less and less intense, probably to the point where he just has to call in once in a while. But if you get too complacent and all of a sudden, you don't register, or all of a sudden, porn's an addiction, right? And, if you're looking at porn all the time, guess what? It's tough to stop that. It just is. And I've known clients that have, violated their conditions over and over again, and they wind up going back to prison. Now, Diddy seems to me like he's got some discipline. He knows where he wants to be, where he doesn't want to be. And I don't think you're going to see too much trouble with Diddy. I just don't think you're going to. But very well could be that he doesn't follow the rules. And, the first violation could be like 18 months. The second violation could be this, Or he could be demonstrating such good compliance that he gets off early, which happens quite often. Okay, well, now that but he still has to register as a sex offender. He still has to do all these different things. Even after he's off of supervised release, he'll still have to register. And if he goes to Miami, because his home's in New York, he's got to check in with the local sheriff and say, hey, sex offender in town, that's what he got to do. I mean, this is not an easy thing for him to have to deal with down the road. But is it life in prison? No, it's not. Is it 20 years in prison? No, it's not. Is it even 10 years? No, it's not. But it's still going to be something he has to deal with. So it's no little thing that he is part of this community of people that have to be supervised. And he gave the government a big foray into controlling his life. And that's what happens when you decide to break the law. That's our little Diddy update. I was close. I was close on my prediction, wasn't I? I think I was. But, I've seen these things time and time again. And, the prosecutor asked for the moon. The defense asked for something less. And judge usually kind of comes down in the middle. That's pretty common. And, and his sentence itself, I think, is pretty unappealable. It's the conviction that they're going to try to, saying that he was convicted with conduct that was acquitted and there was spillover. And I think the judge dispatched that when they made a motion for a judgment of acquittal a second or third or fourth time, however many times they did that. So, we really appreciate y'all. I really do appreciate, we get so much love from this channel. People say a lot about Michael. People say a lot about me and, just words of encouragement. And, and days sometimes are harder than others. And it's just impressive to have such a community of folks that support you. And I really appreciate everybody out there. And so we'll see you next time on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you subscribe. Tell your grandma if she's living in your basement, she should subscribe too. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on, oh, by the way, somebody sent me a picture of a grandma wearing a Stop Self-Snitching shirt. Fucking love it. I can't remember what your name was, but that was phenomenal. So just follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for our Patreon, go to CLR Bruce Rivers and get your grandma a shirt. And if you send me a picture of your grandma in a Stop Self-Snitching shirt, we'll put it up on Instagram if that's okay with her. So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. This just in, we just got done filming a Diddy video about the jurors and the questions and, where you can see what their mind is. And as we were filming it, we got the news that the jurors have come to a decision on 4 of the 5 counts. Now, keep in mind, there's the racketeering count, and there's 2 sex trafficking counts, and 2 transportation for prostitution across state lines counts, okay? The sex trafficking counts are like 15 years. So, even if they acquit on the RICO, if they find him guilty on any one of the other offenses, it could be 10 or 15 years. There's a 15-year mandatory minimum on the sex trafficking charges. But we don't know. So what happened this afternoon is we got news that the jurors have made a decision on 4 of the 5 counts that they are deadlocked on the RICO count. When you look at the rest of this video and you hear the questions that they've asked, keep those in mind when you analyze all the news coverage that you're going to get between now and tomorrow. My guess is we're going to get a verdict tomorrow. So what happened was the jurors came back with a note saying, they've made a decision on 4 of the 5 counts, but they're deadlocked on this other one. In other words, we have unpersuadable minds on both sides of the aisle. So some people think he's guilty. Some people think he's not. It could be 11-1. We don't know. It could be 6-6. Could be 10-2. Could be 11-1 for not guilty. I don't know. But so what the judge did was brought everybody back into the courtroom, and he gave them what's called an Allen charge, basically. Like, go back and deliberate some more and try not to offend your conscience and blah, blah, blah. And so they're done for the day. They're going to go back tomorrow. We're going to get a verdict tomorrow. If they come back again, after a few hours of deliberation and say, Judge, we just can't do it, the judge will probably let him hang on that count. That means you're going to get a verdict on 4 counts and then a hung jury on the RICO. And the government has a choice. If he's acquitted of all the other 4 counts, they probably won't do anything with the RICO count. If there's a mix, like a compromise verdict, they probably will. If it's all guilty, they have the option of trying that RICO count if it comes back as a hung jury. We just don't know. If you're Sean P. Diddler Combs, guess what you're doing? You're going like this. Your heart is fucking pounding. If you're Agnifilo or Brian Steele or any of the defense counsel, your heart is pounding through your chest. You don't know what they're thinking. You just don't. It is really interesting when you look at the questions, because they talked about distribution, right? And they wanted to know if somebody's asking for some drugs, is that distribution? That's really directly related to the RICO case. I don't know what to make of that. It seems to me the prostitution across state lines is a pretty easy guilty. I mean, it really wasn't controverted at all. And the sex trafficking, if somebody's out, unconscious, that's coercion, force, fraud, or coercion. That's what they have to prove. So I don't know. I'm my head's kind of spinning because we're all watching the coverage. So watch the rest of this video, as brought to you by AskALawyer.com, and watch the rest of this video and see what you think, and make some comments. And Robert and Nick will all try to dissect them, and then let me know what's going on with that. Okay, so get your little jug of wine. Get your you know what. I try to make myself more important than I am. I say my fans are white wine drinkers, snooty. They're really box wine drinkers, aren't you? Just kidding. Get your popcorn and watch the rest of this video. Watch the coverage. Tell me what you guys think. I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm guessing just like everybody else. However, my guessing is informed by years of practice. So, have at it.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your very own personal board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming to you with my pearl-handled pistol cufflinks that were so graciously gifted to me by our former content genius, Michael Rivers. God rest his soul. All right, so today we're reacting to a little bit of a Diddy update. It's not going to be a long video, so you don't have time for a whole bottle of wine, maybe a sip or two, and maybe just a handful of popcorn. But before we get to that, as always, this is brought to you by AskALawyer.com. AskALawyer.com is a cheap way for any grandma in a basement to get not free legal advice, but $49. It's pretty reasonable. I mean, you come and see me, I charge a hell of a lot more than that. For $49, one of the things that if you talk to a live lawyer, and that's what you're going to be doing, they can either get you on the right path or disabuse you of the wrong path. So go to AskALawyer.com if you have a problem with your landlord, if you have a contract dispute, if you have any kind of legal problem whatsoever, there's a serious lawyer at AskALawyer.com for $49. And if you're doing your own legal research, they've got an AI to help you with that. So go to AskALawyer.com, and you know they're a quality outfit because they're the same people that brought you eForms and eSign, and they're an incredible sponsor of our channel. So we suggest you go there. In fact, I'm an e-signer as you speak because I just sent something off. Okay, so AskALawyer.com. Now, here's the deal. Diddy, Diddler, the Diddler man. The man who likes to diddle with all kinds of oil. I still can't get over all the fucking oil and all the damage that they did to these hotel rooms. I mean, what's wrong with it? Man on top, get it over with quick, let's have a snack. I mean, you have to be a freaky to be a freak. Anyway, maybe I'm just too vanilla for you guys. Anyway, so remember what I told you? I told you to look at what the jurors' questions are when they send something to the judge, because they can ask questions of the judge. So today is Tuesday, so it's the second day of deliberation. They started yesterday. Within 70 minutes, they had a question for the judge, and it was, can we do something about this other juror who doesn't want to follow your directions? Here's the thing. The jurors have to follow the instructions that the judge gives them. So the juror sent a note saying that they were concerned that one of the jurors could not follow the judge's instructions. Now, this guy had his PhD. And let me tell you something. I have a story similar to this. I was doing jury selection in a murder one. I had this juror who had, you question him one-on-one in a murder one case. So we're trying to see if they can be fair during voir dire, or some people call it voir dire. This juror had his PhD in computer science. He had a restraining order against him because the president of his unicycling club wouldn't return his affections. So you know right away when you hear this that you're dealing with a nut job, right? Well, I'm sitting there and the judge is talking to the juror and he spells his name Fuchs. And my God, this was the funniest thing that's ever happened to me in a courtroom. So the judge says, Mr. Fuchs, and he looks at her and he says, Fuchs. And Fuchs, 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 Fuchs. And they go back and forth like this. And I'm dying laughing. This guy said Fuchs about 20 times to the judge. And the judge was just like, what? And every question that he was asked was weirder. His answers were weirder than the one before. And you could just tell he was going to be an absolute pain in the ass. We had questionnaires. He took 3.5 hours to fill out his questionnaire. Everybody else took like 20 minutes. And he bitched about the order of the questions. I suspect you're going to have something like that. And the defense would love to have this guy on the jury. But if he can't follow the directions and he becomes too much of a pain in the ass, guess what? There are alternates in the wings waiting. But it seems like that resolved. And then today they asked the judge for transcript of several sections of testimony, including Cassie Ventura's testimony about the 2016 Intercontinental incident. As I told you, the jurors had asked about transcripts of, and usually they don't give them, usually just rely on your memory. There was a delay of about 3 hours because the lawyers were bickering back and forth about what they wanted to add. And the delay was caused in part because of the dispute between the lawyers about how much of the testimony to include. The defense lawyers wanted to add more, including testimony about Ventura's $10 million settlement with Los Angeles Intercontinental Hotel, while prosecutors advocated to send a narrower portion of the transcript. Why wouldn't you just send the whole thing and then, without highlighting a particular portion of it? After Judge Arun Subramanian, I know I'm butchering the name, suggested sending the jury the entirety of Ventura's testimony, which was what I would do, prompting Combs to visibly shake his head at his lawyers. And the defense lawyers relented and agreed to send a shorter portion of the transcript. Juries must have wanted to see a certain portion of the transcript. This tells you what they're thinking about. And from the defense point of view, that's probably a good thing. Because if they're focused on her testimony, they're questioning her credibility. The jury focused on 3 instances that prosecutors highlighted as examples of Combs' alleged sex trafficking of Ventura. First, the jury requested Ventura's testimony about being assaulted by Combs at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. She testified that she tried to leave a so-called freak-off sexual encounter after Combs gave her a black eye. Second, the jury also requested testimony given by Ventura and Phillip about an alleged instance in which Combs became violent with Ventura at a New York hotel during a freak-off. And notice these are in different locations across state lines, that kind of thing. The last portion of the testimony requested by the jury focused on a time when Ventura traveled with Combs overseas to attend the Cannes Film Festival in France. This is interesting. So, and the jury, you can really kind of dive into the mind of the jury when you read their questions. So another question that the jury had, the judge said he plans to answer the jury's question from yesterday about narcotics distribution by referring them to a section in their legal instructions. In other words, you have everything that you need, just dive into it. The word distribution means actual, constructive, or attempted to transfer. To distribute simply means to deliver. That's the general gist of, to deliver, to pass over, to hand over something to another person, or to cause it to be delivered, passed on, or handed over to another. Distribution does not require sale. So if Robert and I are out there and I've got a bunch of ecstasy because I want him to take his shirt off, and I give him a bunch of ecstasy and he does, that's distribution. Just handing somebody, you don't have to sell it. And in the third note, so this is a jury that's really engaged. So in a third note, the jury asked if a recipient wants, requests, or asks for controlled substances, and an individual hands over the controlled substance to the requester, has the individual who hands over the controlled substance distributed? Yes, the answer is yes. Just because somebody asked it doesn't mean it isn't distribution. So the jury's focused on deliberation and what does it mean. And Agnifilo objected to the judge's instruction, saying he doesn't believe it goes far enough to answer the jury's question. The court is about to make something that amounts to a mistake, he argued. Can I give Your Honor an example? No, the judge said. Can you do what I'm asking? The judge denied defense request to modify the language in the response, saying it would confuse the jury even further. This is an attempt to mislead the jury, prosecutor Maureen Comey says. Oh, that's Comey's daughter, I believe. Combs stroked his chin and looked directly at the judge while the argument played out. When the judge denied the lawyer's request, he stared at Agnifilo. I don't think he and Agnifilo are getting along, to be honest with you. The structure of the verdict form instructs the jury only to consider the drug offenses and other underlying crimes if and only if they find Combs guilty of racketeering conspiracy. So, what does that tell you? The fact that they're looking at distribution, and you only look at the distribution if and only if you find that racketeering exists. Did they find that racketeering exists if they're now analyzing what distribution is? You could probably argue that that's the case. And if that's the case, stick a fork in him. He's done. This is really interesting. But this is all speculation on my part too, right? I mean, we don't know exactly what the conversations between the jurors are. So what we're doing is, we're taking little nuggets here, little nuggets there, and trying to speculate. But it's probably pretty good speculation that, they may have found racketeering and now they're discussing whether there's drug trafficking. And you can see from the other questions what they're focused on. And it seems like they're engaged, they're focused on the right things. The other part of the testimony that they asked for was a portion of Ventura's testimony about freak-offs with Daniel Phillip, a male escort who was also a prosecution witness. The jury further asked for Phillip's testimony regarding an alleged freak-off at the Essex Hotel in New York. Phillip testified that he saw Ventura completely passed out and slumped over at that time. What would that tell you? That's not consent. One of the things Agnifilo said in his closing, take away the sex of this. Just ignore the sexual part of this. This is really a domestic case. Yeah, maybe he was a little abusive, but this is a wait. It's like, okay, take away the racketeering for a second. You can't do that. Ignore the facts of the case, would you please? Just ignore the facts. So the jurors have sent it's got to be 3 or 4 notes to the judge. I think they're working through the elements of the crime. They had a problem with one of the jurors, and maybe that's been resolved. Hopefully that's been resolved. But sometimes the more educated you are, the more pain in the ass you are. If you have some obscure PhD and you want to analyze everything to its ultimate degree, when really a 30,000-foot view is what you need sometimes. And, it's been brought up by some people. Maybe they think, this is really between them and 30 to life is, too much time and I'm just not going to go with that. Here's the thing. Here's the long and short of that. The jurors get an instruction. They cannot consider consequence. They cannot consider penalty at all. It is not, and they're bitching about one of the jurors not following, the instructions of the judge. And that was only 70 minutes into it. So they're going to follow the instructions. Whoever the foreperson is probably say, look, no, this is what we need to do, and you're not doing this, so I'm going to talk to the judge about it. That's probably what happened. But they can't consider punishment. You can't consider the consequences of how this might affect the music industry or how sending somebody to prison for way too long a time. You can't do that. So my money is that they're really already figuring on a conviction of the conspiracy and everything else that follows from it. I really believe that. Now, I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. I mean, Agnifilo and his folks didn't call a single witness, but in all reality, who the fuck are they going to call? Who are they going to call? Somebody else at the freak-offs? They couldn't call anybody that would help him. And they're not going to call a character witness of the diddler. I mean, we're going to get 50 Cent to be his character witness? He fucking hates him. You see that video of him taking him shopping?
He said something to me one time, a long time ago. At Chris Lighty's wedding, he told me he'd take me shopping. I looked at him like, what'd you just say? Let me move, man, before I do something. You're gonna make me mess up the wedding.
Oh, that's a nice gesture.
Let me get out of no, dude, take me. That's what a guy says to him.
I asked 50 about that, and he said you did the same thing to him. You asked him to take him shopping.
Yeah, I thought he needed some clothes. What? I'm a nice guy.
You take your girlfriend shopping. You don't take me fucking shopping. It's just strange. So here's the other interesting factoid that came out. The jurors are deliberating, right? And while they're deliberating, he gets hit with yet another civil complaint. He was accused in a fresh civil complaint of drugging and raping an Orange County man in 2021, according to the lawsuit obtained by USA Today. In 2021, the man, then in his 20s, alleges that the lawsuit that he met a security guard for one of Combs' parties and while stopped at a gas station in Los Angeles, because that's what we do when we're at a gas station. We pick up random fucking strangers and fuck the shit out of them. The guard invited him to the party that evening, where he says he drank a glass of champagne with funny juice in it, Jesus juice in it, and a glass of champagne on arrival, and then he later suspected had been drugged. The suit was filed on June 23rd by nobody else but Tony Busby. Yes, it's time for Tony Busby. Boy, he just seems like this bottom feeder. Why did this come out now? I mean, why did this all of a sudden come out now? This is suspect. This guy better have something to back his shit up other than just his words. No matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone. Man, woman, adult, or minor. You know, fuck, these legal teams are just getting rich off of Combs with all these lawsuits. I mean, at this point, just fucking default and who gives a shit? What are your damages? We live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason, Combs' legal team continued. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process, except for the one I'm going through right now, exists to find the truth. And Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court. I'm proud to be leading the civil litigation and really looking forward to trying these cases in court, so says Mr. Busby. I don't know if he's ever tried a case or not. Drawing on his cache of other lawsuits, the allegations levied in the federal trial, Busby called the most recent allegation against Combs shockingly typical. Busby is who he is. You can look him up online and you can see his demeanor. He's one level below Better Call Saul. Although I kind of like Saul. Just as if while you're sitting there, you know, it's like, you ever see that Sam Kinison deal? What's the worst that can happen to you? You put in your grave, right? He's laying there and you're in your grave. What's the worst? And all of a sudden he goes, wait, what's going on? And you're like, you're in your grave, you're dead. And he rolls over and he's, hey, he's getting fucked in the ass by somebody. It's like that you think, just when you think it was worse, then it gets 10 times worse. Fucking Diddy. You know, I feel bad for him in one sense because there's just so much there. But at the other sense, this is all of his own making. You are putting yourself out there, and whether the people have legitimate claims or not, you're making yourself vulnerable because people are predispositioned to believe that you did all this shit. And you even said you did, you know, no party like a Diddy party, right? No off like a freak off.
Hey, everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah.
We're going to continue to follow, but read the questions that the jurors have. Because the questions that the jurors have are going to be critical to where their head's at, right? Just like anything else. So read the tea leaves. The Mann Act charges, those are proven. I mean, no question that he hired hookers, and that was totally uncontroverted. You know, the Agnifilo didn't say, don't believe that male prostitute that just testified that he got paid. I mean, how else would he be there? And what male would want to get up there and say, oh yeah, I'm a prostitute? Fucking nobody. I tell you. Oh, I love it. You can tell that I love this shit because, you know, when you're in a big trial like this, where you have multiple lawyers, multiple defendants, and well, a lot of times these sex trafficking trials are, you know, multiple defendants. It's good camaraderie. It's good camaraderie between the prosecutor and the defense lawyers. Good camaraderie among counsel. Unless you got a bunch of egos that don't quit. I don't really have an ego that doesn't quit because I love what I do. And I love my colleagues, and we tend to get along. And it's the gift that keeps on giving to any kind of plaintiff's lawyers, because how many more people are going to come out of the woodwork? And it is suspect that somebody would come out now, you know? And Busby, I think, is a little late in the game on this one. Just pick him up at a gas station. There's got to be more to it. He's got to have pictures. He's got to have text messages. I mean, this is from 2021 or 2020 or whenever it was, 5 years ago. Why are you just coming out now? You know, I mean, so you got to be a little suspect of some of these people jumping on the bandwagon late in the game. Like when Prince died, you know how many people claim that they were offspring of Prince? Oh, I'm his long lost son in Montana. Yeah, so fuck you. No, you're not. So we'll see you next time here at Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you subscribe. Go to clrbrucerivers.com for all your merch needs. Your grandma's got a birthday coming up, doesn't she? I'll tell you what. I'll give $100 if you order a shirt and you give it to your grandma and you send me a picture of your grandma in my shirt. I will send you $100 for that. That would be hilarious. And make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon. And if you have a fiance like I do, oh my God, will you be lucky. See you next time on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please is at my God.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer, and I'm certified both in criminal law and criminal trial law. I'm a specialist in the area of criminal defense. So we're reacting today to Sidney Royal Selby, a.k.a. Designer. And he was arrested recently for showing his wee-wee on the plane. But before we get to that, this is brought to you by eSign.com. eSign.com is an effective way to remotely do business. So you go to the App Store and you download the app. You should always have the app on hand because you never know when you're going to need it. So let's say you're sitting in a holding cell at the airport and you get one phone call. You talk to your mother because you are detained for inappropriately showing your member to other people and on the airplane, and so your mother needs to hire somebody for you, and she can't come to Minnesota, so what does she do? She calls a lawyer. The lawyer e-signs a document to her, because if it's not e-signed, no one's going to sign, right? And so she signs a e-signed document, a retainer. She gets you a lawyer. Now you're good to go, and you get out. Everything's cool. So I use e-sign all the time when I have a client that's out of state, just like this situation, or if I have somebody that just can't come to the office, or if you want to ink a deal quickly. It's an effective way to remotely do business. Like I said, if it's not e-sign, no one signs. So let's go backwards. Let's go for read what Designer's statement was that he put out. For the past few months, I have not been okay. And I have been struggling to come to terms with what is going on. While overseas for a concert I performed at, I had to be admitted to the hospital. I was not thinking clearly. They gave me meds, and I had to hop on a plane home. I am ashamed of my actions that happened on that plane. I landed back to the United States, and I'm admitting myself to a facility to help me. I will be canceling all of my shows and any obligations until further notice. Mental health is real, guys. Please pray for me. If you're not feeling like yourself, please get help. Well, that is an incredibly positive message. This is a situation where he doesn't have a defense. So, I mean, there's just no defense to this because there's witnesses that saw the protruding member. And so what does he do? That is, guarantee you, that's 100% the right thing to do. If he's got some issues, he's got some issues. But what happened? Well, I had the complaint, the federal complaint. So whenever you're on an airplane, you are subject to federal law. So whatever you do, if you break the law, you've seen those videos where people get all pissed off and they get on a fight in an airplane, they get arrested by a marshal, or they get arrested by airport cops or whatever. You're under the federal jurisdiction of the FAA at that point, and you are committing a federal crime if you're doing something illegal in the airplane. So on April 17, 2023, I became aware of an incident. This is a federal agent that wrote this up, involving Sidney Royal Selby III. On April 7, 2023, Selby obscenely and indecently exposed his genitals and masturbated in a public place. The offense took place on Delta Airlines Flight 120. Let's see. I learned of the incident involving Selby at approximately 10:15 a.m. He was on a flight going from Tokyo to the United States, landing on a Delta flight in Minneapolis. He was sitting in Delta 1. That's those pods, right? So after Delta Airlines Flight 120 took off from Tokyo, Flight Attendant 1 was providing services to the Delta 1 cabin. Would you like something to drink, sir? What? And which is more commonly known as first class. Selby was a passenger in the Delta 1 cabin and was seated at row 1J. About 60 to 90 minutes after takeoff, Flight Attendant 1 noticed Selby was outside of his sweatpants. Flight Attendant 1 told Selby, no. Selby then put his penis back in his pants. About 5 minutes later, Flight Attendants 1 and 2 were servicing the cabin. Flight Attendants 1 and 2 saw Selby outside of his pants again. His was erect and he was masturbating. Flight Attendant 2 told Selby, no. Selby covered his penis. The lead flight attendant came to Selby's seat and told me he was going to be arrested. So, I mean, you shouldn't do this on an airplane. If you got to whip it out, go to the bathroom. A short time later, Flight Attendant 1 saw Selby's penis out of his pants a third time. The lead flight attendant handed Selby an FAA violation card. This is a notice that states that a passenger's behavior appears to be in violation of federal law. Selby replied, I'm sorry. I mean, at least he's not a dick about it. Pardon my French. Sorry, I'm getting the giggles a little bit. At the request of the flight attendant, Selby moved to the seat rear of the plane and was seated next to two travel companions who agreed to monitor his behavior. When Selby initially stood up to move seats, a jar of Vaseline dropped to the side. Anyway, once seated by his companion, Selby told a security guard that he was bugging and messed up and he was very sorry. He engaged in no additional acts of exposure or masturbation during the flight. At the end of the flight, Selby apologized to Airbus staff. So, I mean, here's the thing. He apologized. So his behavior, so he whipped it out. And if you know these these Delta 1, they're kind of private, I mean, in a sense, because no other passengers would have seen him in all likelihood. But he should have just had a blanket. When Flight 120 arrived in Minneapolis, Selby was detained and taken to a conference room at Terminal 1 in this Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, where I interviewed him. So the interview was audio recorded, and I began the interview by providing Selby a Miranda warning. So he's in custody, there's interrogation, so you have to initiate the Miranda warning. I asked what had happened, and he said he was returning after performing in Japan, where he didn't really get much cootie. As a result, he said he was brick hard when he got on the plane. Okay, he should have worn my Stop Self-Snitching hat. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. Hang on a second. Okay. Selby said Selby said that on the plane, he saw a real great, beautiful lady. And I just kind of showed her the magic stick. He confirmed that the magic stick was referring to his penis. And then he said the beautiful lady was a female flight attendant with red hair. That fit the physical description of the flight attendant. Number 2, I asked if he took his penis out on purpose. So he said, yeah, she was turning me on. He said he exposed himself because I didn't have anything in like a week, which I understood to mean that he had not had sex in about a week. I asked if he thought his actions interrupted the flight attendant's work, and he said, I thought I was giving her encouragement to keep pushing, what I meant, striving for it. What the hell? Let's see. Selby said that one of the flight attendants told him, you can't do that on a flight. Kids might walk past. But when I asked Selby if he exposed himself a second time, he said, yeah, I have to do it twice. Once for a flight attendant too, and once for her friend. Oh my God. Can't make this up. Selby described a friend as a female flight attendant with long blonde hair, which fit the physical description of flight attendant number 1. I asked Selby if he was under the influence. He said no. Selby said that he had been prescribed medicine in Thailand, and he showed me medications bearing labels from Bangkok Hospital. He said he had not taken the medicine prior to exposing himself on the airplane. He'd only taken vitamins. Selby did not appear to be impaired. He appeared to understand all my questions, which he answered with coherent responses. So there we go. I laugh because it is kind of a funny event, and the way it's described, he just didn't get any cootie. It's pretty funny. But if he's suffering from some medical, or if he's suffering from any kind of mental health issue, which he clearly has got some boundary issues, I hope he's getting some help. And this is the right thing to do. If he checked himself into a hospital, trying to figure out his deal, it's a misdemeanor. So it's 90 days in jail is all he's looking at. And I doubt if he's even looking at that, because he's taking care of the problem, if there is a problem. And he was cooperative and not belligerent. I'd rather see somebody like this, to be honest with you, if I'm a judge or if I'm a prosecutor, or if I'm even somebody on the airplane. I'd rather see somebody cuffing their carrot than somebody getting violent on the airplane. So this is just our so he'll appear in court. They issued this by summons, not by warrant. And so I'm sure they just released him right then and there. This is here in our hometown. So he will come back here to Minneapolis, appear right across the street, and hopefully it'll be just a blip on his radar screen. I wish, I know I made light of this, and it is funny when you read it. I mean, read his statement and the things that he told the agent. But it's not funny if somebody's suffering from some kind of mental health issue. And so I just wish him the best and hope this thing just kind of gets, fly private next time. So that's our little reaction to the designer and his woes that he's facing here in Minneapolis. So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers. Make sure you subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Patreon. We're doing some good stuff there. We'll see you next time on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please just at my God.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, and welcome to the holidays. It's Christmas, and this is a fireside chat edition of CLR Bruce Rivers. But before we get on to that, guess what? This, like all of our episodes, is sponsored by eForms.com. eForms.com. Let's say you're in jail this weekend because you kind of went off the rails. Well, you need somebody to handle your affairs when you're in jail. So you call your sweetheart and you have somebody go to eForms.com and get a power of attorney. Now she can handle all your stuff for you until you get out, and you can revoke that power of attorney if you don't really trust her that much. But anyway, go to eForms.com. Doesn't matter what state you go to. They've got all the forms needed for any kind of stuff. Don't hire me. Don't hire a guy like me. I would just go to eForms.com, and you just have to go back there anyway. So go to eForms.com. They're awesome. Now, let's talk about the Tory Lanez verdict. Now, Tory Lanez was convicted of all 3 counts. He was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon, negligent discharge, and possession of an unregistered firearm. The possession of an unregistered firearm is not that big a deal. The news media says he's looking at 22 and a half years. He's not looking at that much time. The biggest problem that he's going to have is deportation. He's from Canada. He's not a U.S. citizen, I don't think. And if he's convicted of a felony, especially a gun count, he is going to be looking at a significant amount of time. Out of the country, that is. Now, let's just talk about what happened in this trial. You had Megan Thee Stallion, Megan Pete, she testified. Kelsey Harris testified. But Kelsey Harris, I don't think was all that powerful. But what's powerful in this case are 2 things. One, the position of where Tory Lanez was in the vehicle. And then the other part is, look at her injury. They pulled a slug out of her, or at least a fraction of a portion of a slug, out of her foot. So the jury evidently bought what Megan Thee Stallion was selling. Now, there's a lot of controversy about what happened and how it happened and who to believe and who not to believe. The jury in this case believed Megan Thee Stallion and believed that Tory Lanez actually fired the shot. But there was some controversy about whether or not Kelsey and Tory were fighting over this gun, and Kelsey, when push came to shove, she didn't testify for shit. She didn't testify that she heard Tory say, "Dance, bitch." She didn't hear him say that. Or at least now she says, "I was drunk and I'm suffering from postpartum depression." So she didn't recall that, and she didn't recall seeing him shoot the gun. So it really came down to Tory's word against Megan's word. And when you have that, you can't have that without something else backing things up. She did have an injury. There's no question that she had an injury. She went to the doctor, and they pulled out a bullet fragment out of her foot. That's powerful. And then you also look at the location where they found the gun and where they found Tory. And we in our last video about this, you remember we showed you that Tory was in the front passenger seat, Megan Thee Stallion was in the rear passenger side, and Kelsey Harris was in the rear driver's side. So when you have something like this happen, people take sides, right? When the OJ case happened, people took sides, regardless of race, gender, or whatever. But in this case, people are taking sides, and Megan's taken a lot of heat for this. So let's take a look at the reaction from Tory's father.
In the LAPD's office, tell me how there's no fingerprints. My God Almighty, I call heaven and earth to be a record today. That Rock Nation, you will crumble. I am an apostle of God. That's right. And you will know who I am. That's right. Say that, man. Come on, man. I feel that, bro.
That's a father speaking passionately about his son. And what is a father going to do, honestly? A father typically is going to be advocate for his son. But let's talk about what he just talked about. There's no fingerprints on that gun. Guess what? You know how often it is you find fingerprints on a firearm? Not that often. It's more often that we don't find fingerprints on a firearm, because firearms typically have oil on them, right? And you have oil on your fingers. You just generally, we have oil, just natural oils that come out of our skin. And when you have a firearm, generally you don't get a good fingerprint off of it. So the fact that there wasn't a fingerprint on this firearm does not say a whole lot about whether he held the gun or not. And let's talk about DNA. You're not necessarily going to get DNA off of a firearm. There's a whole variety of reasons for it, but sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Sometimes there just isn't enough material to get the DNA off of a gun. And if you get a DNA, sometimes it's not complete. So they can say, well, we can't exclude that person. So in other words, that we can't say that person touched the gun 100%, but we can't exclude him either. So 9 times out of 10, I see this in gun cases all the time, where you just really don't have a whole lot of DNA or fingerprints on a gun. So where does that leave us? You know, like I said, people take sides. People get in this camp or that camp. People have conspiracies. People, you know, I mean, listen how passionate his father was, you know, and that's understandable. But the jury has spoken, and the jury's verdict should be respected. They heard every ounce of this trial. You didn't. I didn't. We weren't in the courtroom. We didn't see exactly what was said and what evidence was presented. So, and we know that Megan got fucking shot. We know she got shot. And we also know that Tory has means. So, Tory Lanez didn't come at this like your typical client who's got the public defender, who hasn't had time to look into the case, who hasn't time. He had resources. And those resources challenged and lost. Even the best lawyer, guess what? Can't change facts. You can't change the fact. Can't change the fact of where he came out of the car. You can't change the fact of where they found the firearm. You can't change the fact that she had a bullet wound in her foot and a fragment in her foot. So those are hard facts. And those hard facts are probably what corroborated Megan's information that she gave to the jury. So everybody should take a step back. Now, here's the thing. Is he going to get 22 and a half years? Not on your life. There's just no way that's going to happen. He probably will do a year, maybe 2 years at the max. Or maybe he'll just get probation. It really isn't going to be a very stiff sentence. But his bigger consequence will be an immigration consequence. Because you get convicted of a felony, major felony like this one, crime of violence, that is reason for deportation. It's possible that his lawyers might try something to kind of keep him in the country, but that is the bigger consequence that he is going to have to worry about. So this has just been our little fireside chat about the Tory Lanez case. And I just want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And if you're doing a little bit of this, take an Uber. So I'm Bruce Rivers. Thank you for an awesome year. I'm going to just give some props out to my son, Michael, who is a content genius. Michael Rivers. Give him some love on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you follow us. Our hats off to JLap and Cram. And then our hats off to Percy Mack, who did our outro. We really have had a lot of support and a lot of success this year. And our hats also off to... So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Subscribe, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and follow us on Patreon because we're doing some good work there too. We'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please just let my God.